Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 53 of Superannuated Starman. I'm your host, Sean Ryan, and as always, I'm joined by Chris Duerksen
Always.
and Cory Braucks.
Sometimes.
How are you guys doing? The weather has been exceptionally warm here. It's 88 right now in central Texas. What about you guys?
What is the? I gotta look at a. I gotta look at a thermostat. It's 40 and raining here.
Oh my God,
Same.
Yeah,
that is just horrible.
we've had that weird polar global warming issue where it goes from 70 to 30 to 70 30 to 80 to 20. So it's been fun.
Last weekend, it was 80 degrees, like 83 degrees on my way home from work. And then on Sunday, I took Gibbs sledding.
That's wild.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, dude, Monday to Thursday it was like 70, and I'm just like, man, it's so nice out. I wish, I can't wait for the weekend. Like Friday hits, and it's like 50 degrees and raining super hard and disgusting, and it's been gross all weekend.
Well, the upside to that is that hopefully we will all have plenty of time to finish up our playthroughs of Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Yeah, Chris.
We mentioned last time that was going to be our game of note for now, but we didn't get a chance to finish it, and we have a guest that's going to come on and talk about it as well, and he hasn't finished it up. But we wanted to get another episode out there, so we chose to knock out a much smaller game, but no less good. And we dove into our memories and pull out a classic that many remember as being the greatest game in the computer lab.
That's right. Yes, I'm interrupting because I had to kill Sean's friend.
Yes. Allegedly, he died of dysentery.
It was actually cholera.
Oh, rough. And that's what happens when you travel the Oregon Trail for the Apple II.
I thought we had 3 false starts there because of me.
No worries. But for everyone else out there, stick around and let the monochrome memories wash over you as you enjoy this music. And when we return, we'll discuss the history of the Oregon Trail. When most people think of the Oregon Trail video game, they think of the green and black pixelated adventure where you attempt to ford rivers and hunt bison. But more often than not, you end up dying of dysentery before reaching your destination. The life of this game actually started in December of 1971 as a text-based strategy game developed by Don Rawich, Bill Heineman, and Paul Dillenberger. At the time, Rawich was a senior at Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota, when he recruited 2 of his friends who were also fellow student teachers to help him design his student teaching project. The trio developed the game over the course of 2 weeks to assist Rawich with a unit at Jordan Junior High School in Minneapolis, where he taught 8th grade history class. Whether it was by choice or directive of the school board, the game was deleted from the school's mainframe at the end of the semester, despite the popularity it had among students. 3 years later, in 1974, Rawich created the game for the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium, or better known as MEC. MEC distributed educational software for free in Minnesota and for sale elsewhere. The game would see several re-releases over the next decade, but before the game would become what it's known as today, it was released on MEC's Elementary Series, Volume 6 in 1980, featuring very minimal graphics under the title Oregon. It wasn't until the game stepped out of its text-based shoes and received a major graphical overhaul that it would release on the Apple II as a visual virtual adventure, going on to become a timeless classic. Over the next 10 years, the Oregon Trail generated approximately 1/3 of MEC's $30 million annual revenue. During this time, Oregon Trail Deluxe was released on DOS and Macintosh in 1992, followed by Oregon Trail 2 in 1995, and eventually a 3rd, 4th, and 5th editions came out. As of 2011, more than 65 million copies of the Oregon Trail have been sold. There were also spin-off titles such as the Yukon Trail and the Amazon Trail.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about the Yukon Trail.
So, jump in here real quick. I am a child of Minnesota, as I believe we have established at some point.
We have?
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Hey, shut your mouth. So, the fun thing is that MEC is known as the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium, and it was actually founded by the state legislator. So, all of these games that we're talking about were free in Minnesota, and I ended up playing a lot of them because of that. And it was really cool because, like, it was what Number Munchers. This
Odell
one,
Lake.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I just was looking at a list of them too.
Oh, was that Odell? Was that the fish one where you had to like you were like a trout and then you had to like you know eat bigger fish or sorry smaller fish?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What about that paper airplane game? Was that one of them?
I don't know, but yeah, so it's like the Secret Island of Doctor Quandary, Number Munchers, Dino Park Tycoon. Those are some of the ones that I remember, and yeah, like we just had this cool free software basically from the legislature that, like, I think kind of jump started a lot of us in like the 80s and 90s because I remember having I don't remember it wasn't the Apple II, but it was like one of the early 90s or like late 80s models. It was just the beige square, PC with like the square mouse that you had. And like all these were preloaded on there. So like as kids, we ended up having a bunch of this stuff.
It was definitely a wild time and something that I am forever thankful for because I really adore this game, but I'll talk more about that in my personal history.
To me it was really cool that like we had all this like educational software basically, and it was just disguised as fun things for children. And it's just I don't know that really anyone's doing that right now.
That's actually one thing I was going to mention is because like I was looking for educational games for Gibbs and there's just not a lot. Like I mean and there are, but it's not the same way and they're not the same caliber and a lot of them are like super indie, which means super garbage and like it's just different. Like when we were kids, those educational games were like kind of like some of the best games we had to play, and they just happen to be educational and they happen to be great. And now nobody plays educational games.
So part of the cool thing is that I'm reading here from the website basically, but Mac had a discount agreement with the Atari company, and they distributed the software through the Atari Program Exchange. 85% of school districts had them in 1981. So by then, each of Minnesota's public schools had an average of 3 to 4 computers compared to only 20 in Milwaukee elementary schools out of 110. So yeah, like part of this like big exchange of them developing software like meant that as kids, like we all had like a computer lab at school.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to speak about the immense popularity that this game especially had over the years, it's been re released as a card game, a board game, it's been released as a standalone handheld device, and it's currently available as a ground up remake for the Nintendo Switch. It's on Xbox platforms, PlayStation 4, 5, as well as Windows. There's even a musical comedy film adaptation that's in the works that's based on a 2014 parody musical called The Trail to Oregon.
There's a parody called The Oregon Trail, but spelled like, like body organs.
Yes,
Yes, that was so good on iPhone.
but it's not all sunshine and roses for the game because the main theme of the game is colonization of the American West. And there have been some outcries from Native American critics that view the game as culturally insensitive or outright racist. Because of this, creative director Jared Trudgeon worked with indigenous scholars, resulting in newer versions of the game featuring Native American characters and storylines in an attempt to remove harmful stereotypes and historical inaccuracies. And I think I'm going to stop there, and when we come back, we'll discuss our memories of the Oregon Trail. For this game, my biggest memories are from the computer lab in junior high. We had roughly 20 or so Apple IIes, I would say. Chris, do you remember really well how many we had? I can't even remember exactly, but it
Oh
was a
man,
small room.
yeah, I'd say like looking on the room, like there's probably like 10 or 12 on the west wall, and then like 6 on the other wall, and then we had one fancy Apple computer that was color.
Oh, the clear ones.
Was that another Apple computer? No. He's talking about it. It might have been an IBM that was over there.
Oh, okay.
It might have been IBM. Yeah, you're right.
But after we finished our typing exercises, we're allowed free reign of various educational games that Cory were talking about, like Odell Lake, Number Munchers, and of course Oregon Trail. And
Number
that
Munchers was the best, man.
which?
Number Munchers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What were those
Map
little
on, son.
what were those little things that would run around the map and try to eat you?
I don't know. I just remember you're like a green guy and you used to just run up and eat fractions and stuff.
Definitely a great game. But it wasn't the most popular game. That definitely went to Oregon Trail. And I mostly remember just people starting the game and getting as far as they could so they could hunt and immediately do that. And that's where they spent most of their time. And Chris, you talked about that the fancier computer, which may or may not have been an IBM. I believe that it had an updated version of Oregon Trail, or maybe that was Oregon Trail 2.
I think that was Oregon Trail 2.
Yeah, because it wasn't colored.
You're right, and it was much more. It had more story to it, a lot more dialogue, a lot more text to it, a lot better pictures, and honestly, that just made me not want to play it. I like the OG.
I don't think it had full motion video, but my biggest memories was a shooting gallery that you would shoot at.
Oh my
like
gosh!
bottles.
Yeah, that is Oregon.
Yes,
Trail 2.
It is
I
Oregon Trail
forgot
2?
about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what I will be talking about.
Oh, cool. So I've gone back and played this game several times over the years because it just holds so much nostalgia, and it's a very, very easy game that doesn't take up much of your time. And I'm one of those guys that bought the handheld version from Target that mimics the Apple II monitor. And that said, I haven't bought or played any of the current versions, but I may check them out because I did look at some gameplay and it actually looks pretty fun. And it looks to be the same game essentially with a shiny coat of paint. But there's something that will probably always just kind of be better about that green and black Apple II monitor that I can't let go of. Cory, what are your thoughts on this game? Or really, what are your memories of Oregon Trail?
So my memories are of Oregon Trail 2 because as I said, we got this for free from the state. So like all of our stuff was always being constantly updated. And in the 90s, that's what we had. So like in middle school, I had Oregon Trail 2. And it's the same game basically, but instead of being black and white, it's color, and you have a lot of like rough looking pictures. In like slides come out with like, "Hey, you're in Fort Biggly Bop, and you're trying to cross the Rio Grande or whatever, and here you are." And yeah, so you mentioned like how this kind of portrays natives in a bad way. Um my main memory is going to that shooting gallery and just wasting all the buffalo and then being like, "Yeah, I'm so great at shooting things." And then at the end it's like you can only carry 100 pounds of meat. And it's like, "Oh, I just murdered like 40 animals for no reason. I am part of the problem." Like, so even as a child, I was being taught to not be a wasteful person, and how settlers were just out there murking animals and just leaving their carcasses behind.
But like I was saying, like it seemed like the other kids would start the game and immediately get as far as they could just so they could start hunting and doing exactly that. Trying to see who
Yeah,
could get the most meat, even if it
yeah,
was wasted.
and then waste it. Like, okay, good. Yeah, there was always the thing at the bottom that was like, you can only carry 120 pounds. Like, all of this is going to rot.
because you have a starting amount of money that you can buy supplies with, and you just
And everyone's buying
ignore.
bullets.
Yeah, you just ignore everything else and buy nothing but bullets.
Yeah, and so I remember Chris, we were talking about this before we started doing this. Like last week, you might have mentioned it. So there are 3 starting options in the original game. I think there's like more, like you get a doctor class and stuff like that later. But yeah, so the banker, the carpenter, and the farmer. The banker starts with the most money, so it's the easiest option. But in addition to that, the banker also gets better rates when you are doing trading.
I did not know that.
And then the carpenter keeps his better upkeep of your equipment. So like your wagon wheels and stuff will break less. And then the farmer's just the hardest option because you have no bonuses.
When I was a kid, I remember thinking, oh, like maybe because the banker's from Boston, the carpenter's from Ohio, and the farmer's from Illinois. And I was thinking, okay, like the farmer's has the least amount of money and stuff, so maybe but he's starting, further west than the other people, so maybe it's a shorter route, but you're more broke. No, you all start from the same spot, and it's basically that's just the difficulty toggle.
Yep, and then you get to choose the starting month, so you also get to find out like how much it sucks when you're trying to get through Kansas in April in like 1848.
Oh yeah, I didn't understand that as a kid. It never really made too much sense to me. Obviously, as an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a big factor about how you want to play this game out because you're obviously traveling for hundreds of miles. Yeah, as a kid, that just didn't matter to me at all. It was immediately banker and just whatever month was first.
Even as a kid, like if you started too early, you were freezing right away. If you started too late, then you were too hot right away. But then you
Not only
froze.
that, yeah, you froze near the end because it'd be like
Yeah.
November when you got to Oregon, and they're like, "You all die!" Like, oh, good, no Donner Party situation here.
Yeah. But one thing I do remember as a kid, like when you were actually trying to beat the game instead of just doing hunting, just setting it to grueling pace and just going as fast as possible and just slamming the spacebar just to
Yeah,
skip through
just
everything.
running all your family members out and being like, "Oh well,
Yep.
little Billy's got cholera. Time to get it together."
What would you like to leave on the tombstone? A.
Boy, those poor children that were sacrificed for my trip.
Oh, here's a weird question that I'm sure nobody looked up and I didn't think of. I mean, I thought of it in the moment and didn't look it up. So the tombstones, that was just saved local to that computer, right? Because the version I played today, I came across a tombstone, but it was just blank. And I'm like, there's no way, like, because I was playing an online website version.
You're asking me if the 1980 something classic Oregon Trail was online for everyone to see tombstones? No. it
Yeah,
was
I'm
not.
kind of wondering, like all the stupid tombstones that I left, if those are still on that computer somewhere.
I mean, they might be, yeah, if that computer is still running 30 years from now.
Yeah.
I was gonna wait for the replay, but I might as well bring it up here. That very first tombstone that you come across, the joke about pepperoni and cheese, where it's
What?
misspelled. You know what I'm talking about?
No, what are you talking about? Here lies Link.
Well, similar to that, one of the very first tombstones you can come across literally just says pepperoni and cheese, and pepperoni's misspelled on it, which is a reference to what do you want on your tombstone? The tombstone pizza? Those
Oh my
commercials from back in the day?
gosh. Pepperoni and cheese.
This is completely unrelated, but the Pace commercial just went through my head now.
New York City.
New York City!
Well, I mean, similar vibes there, but
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
just-
How did you not? Even as a kid, I was like, "Oh, that's funny. That's a pretty good joke."
Well, I don't remember seeing that on Tombstone. Like that is like I just don't remember that at all. And the version I played, the Tombstone I found was blank. The only Tombstone I came across was blank. So I don't know.
Sorry about that interruption and a little explanation on what's going on. I'm recording this from the future, so I did a little bit more research and on tvtropes.org. Apparently, this is a well-known meme from Oregon Trail that started because Here Lies Andy, pepperoni and cheese being misspelled, is actually put on that tombstone from a copy of the game that was widely pirated. So that means that the game that I played in my youth in my junior high computer lab was a pirated copy of Oregon Trail. All right, back to the episode. You guys have anything else when we talk about our childhood memories?
I just remember a lot of beige computers and musty smells.
Yeah, I was gonna say the musty smell of the computer lab.
Yeah, that is weird. I think everybody's computer labs always smelled a little off.
Well, yeah, because it was like a small classroom and you had 30 machines all crammed in there that sat over the summer. So they all
All
had
had
dust
exhaust
in them.
fans.
They all dust in the exhaust fan when you turned them all on.
Wild that I never put that together.
And what was our computer teacher's name? Was that like Mr. Davis?
Yeah, Mr. Davis is our computer teacher.
Hello, Mr. Bertrand. You're probably dead, but if you're not,
Oh,
good to see that you've made it to like 90 something.
Let's wrap up this section. When we come back, we will talk about our current playthrough of the Oregon Trail.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that fabulous music from the Oregon Trail that Sean found on some website somewhere. We're here to talk about our modern day playthroughs. I set up my team with everyone's name from the show. And so we have Sean's friend joining us for the Vice City episode coming up. And he's the reason why we haven't recorded it yet, because he hasn't finished his playthrough yet, even though Chris, I guarantee, hasn't finished the game.
Oh, I'm not going to.
Yeah, so there you go, guys. But so I named one of my characters Sean's friend, and since there's a character limit, all it says is Sean's friend on my name, and he got cholera and died. So that was mostly what happened in my game.
How quickly did he get cholera?
Oh, I made sure of it. I set the pace. Yeah, I just tried to murder him.
Brutal.
I told you I was going to. Little Billy did not get the medication he needed to survive.
Which difficulty did you choose?
I went for the carpenter.
Okay, you went medium.
Got to maintain that wagon wheel.
I always go easy. I do not want to play this game in any more difficulty settings because I mean, like, it's a very easy
It
game.
is a hard game.
I think it's super easy if you played it before and you
It's
know like
super easy, yeah.
what to do. But like,
It's made for 6-year-olds.
it's challenging.
I mean, it's made for third graders, but yeah,
it's challenging if you like don't really understand the mechanics, that's kind of baked into the game. But I mean, if you have plenty of, wagon wheels or yokes, or you have your oxen, and just
listen, you
make
say that
plenty of
and then you
food.
try to ford that river in a bad month and you go down, son.
What is your play style like? Are you just? Oh, you said that you were just running us into the dirt
I just
to kill off my buddy.
abuse the party until I get there.
God, that is so horrific. Why would you do this?
Listen, you gotta set them rations to half, the pace to grueling. You gotta get to Fort Kearney.
That is just sadistic. That's sadistic. Why though? Like, is that how you
Listen,
always
the trail
play?
is a harsh place, okay? We gotta get through. We gotta get there. Listen, it's 1848.
Yeah, but they're just trying to live. Why do you gotta do that to them?
Because listen, if I don't get there, and if I settle down here in Little Rock, then the Civil War is gonna start, and I'm gonna be drafted by the Confederacy. I have to get out.
All right, okay.
I mean, listen, do you ford the river or do you try to raft it? That's the real question.
Depends on how deep it is.
I try to raft it every time. I'm trying to save everyone and get through the game as quickly as possible. I know that rafting takes a little more time, but it seems like the percentage of failures when you ford is almost like an 80-20 ratio here.
It's also funny because in the later games, like starting in Oregon Trail 2 onward, when you try to raft like the bigger rivers like the Columbia, the difficulty goes way up.
I wonder how much like variance there was for each of the individual rivers that you do ford. Like, if they took that into like consideration when
I
they
don't think they did in the original game. Sorry to cut you off, but I know in the later iterations they spent more time programming each individual like instance.
yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. If they made any kind of, consideration for that, like, oh, this river is bigger, so your likelihood of failure is much, much higher.
Yeah, in the later games, I know for a fact that they programmed it so that individual events, like for example, the Columbia, they actually they took into account the actual scope of the actual river, and so they made it like a more realistic and dangerous
I
thing.
think they had to have though, because I mean, like even in the old games, like it tells you how wide it is, how deep it is.
Right, but like in terms of coding, I think they just made it a one-stop shop in the original game. Like, or they made it like a set of like 3 difficulties if this was small, medium, or large river or
Oh,
whatever. but like in the later iterations, they had more, processing power to work with. So it was like they made each individual thing its own dangerous thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you're saying that maybe they just had a kind of blurb about that river to afford some historical accuracy to it because it is an educational game. But as far as like the difficulty for fording it or passing the river was all just left up to, chance, the same equal chance across every single river. So that's interesting. I have no idea.
I mean, I would love to see the code for this. It would be super like interesting to see what it would look like as the years progress.
That's what I was just about to say, that I wish I had thought about this a little more thoroughly and try to get a hold of this guy to see if maybe I can, get in a little interview with him. I still might try to do that.
I'm sure there's people from Mech floating around still that would
Floating is
love
a
to talk about their time there.
Are you making a ghost joke?
May
No, I'm
I'm
not.
looking.
No,
Chris,
Chris. When you said floating
Yeah,
and Chris started laughing at that, and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh
I mean,
no."
listen, Chris, if they were in their 30s in the 90s, they'd only be in their 60s now, okay?
What if they were like in their 50s?
Okay, well, then that guy is pushing it, but the rest
He's
of
not
them,
pushing much. Pushing up daisies.
wow.
Okay, I'm done.
Anyhow,
I'm done.
Chris,
Oh
I'm
boy.
done.
tell me about your current playthrough.
I loved it. I found
How many buffalo did you shoot, Chris?
only as soon as I realized that you can only carry back 100 pounds, I stopped. So I stopped wasting bullets. Um, I played on a website. I don't know what website it is, but it gives you a faithful.
Oh, that like freeware one?
Yep,
Yeah.
that gives you a faithful, amazing free version to play. It is colored, but it's everything else is the exact same about it. It's not Oregon Trail 2, it's Oregon Trail 1. And oh my god, the wave of nostalgia that washed over playing this game. And I was playing it on a desktop out of these really crappy. It wasn't even like computer speakers. It came out of like the tower itself.
All the built-in
Yes,
Oh
sound
my
card.
god.
yep. So it was exactly like playing it as a kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably one of the few ways to faithfully
Yes.
like reinvigorate that sound.
Yep, it was so good. And when the music first came on, like when I first like hit my first landmark, and the music was just so loud. It was so good.
Yeah, quick disclaimer for everyone at home. If you guys want to play this, just type in Play Oregon Trail into your web
That is
browser.
exactly what it
There's
did.
like 80 freeware websites that you can play this on.
For me, I did play it on that Target handheld, and it was just so nice to be able to sit down wherever I wanted in the house and to play this game at my own pace. And I was trying to get through it pretty quickly because I was trying to get through Vice City as well,
Sure.
and I've just had a lot of other things going on. So I was the banker. I did
The
lead a
butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
I did lead a pretty grueling pace, but I kept everybody well fed
Oh,
because
you didn't do them half rations.
I did no, because I would immediately stop, hunt, and as soon as I hit like a couple of foxes or a bison, I called it quits and then just started on back on the trail. And I got through it in one single playthrough, which I did not think I was going to be able to do. I figured this was going to take me one or two tries to like remember how to play this game, but yeah, I had no problem doing
I was
it.
expecting to like lose my axles and have party members die and get not tipped over in a river, and none of that happened. Like none of the catastrophes that dumb
Oh, I had
11-year-old
deaths.
me.
Oh, you did have deaths. Okay.
I did have deaths, yes.
I will say that only your friend and Chris died in my playthrough.
Oh,
So
you didn't tell me that. Thanks for.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. It's that survival instinct. It transcends the digital realm.
That's too funny. But anyways, all right. So you went with a grueling pace and try to get through it fast.
Yeah, but like I said, I didn't ford any of the rivers. I would wait to to float it because I wasn't gonna have any of that nonsense where I just dump and lose everything.
yeah, your friend died to cholera, and then Chris, I think, died to exposure.
Oh, nice.
I literally named characters A, B, C, D. Like I didn't.
Wow, no thought
I
at
put
all.
no creativity. No. It was just I got to get through this fast.
I am A. This is my spouse B. Our children C, D, and E.
Yeah, I just would as quickly as I humanly could through this game, and it's a lot of fun. The handheld was really, really fun. I bought it basically because it was on clearance at Target years ago for like $10. And like I was showing you guys before when I was showing you what I played on, it's like $80, $90 on eBay now. I cannot believe that
Ridiculous,
people
dude.
would even want to pay that much just to play Oregon Trail.
Now they know they can just Google it and just find websites that will let you play it through your sound card. Like maybe they won't.
A possibility, but honestly, if I could get my hands on a working Apple II, I'd probably buy it. I'd probably spend a lot more money than I should on it because I'd like to own one. I think it'd be really neat.
Maybe you got snake bite. I don't remember. Anyway,
It's still just replaying through your head.
yeah, I'm trying to remember how you went.
So, guys, because this is going to be such a short episode, do you want to just kind of put your final thoughts in here and we'll just kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, Chris, why don't you get us started about your final thoughts? Is this something that you're going to introduce? Actually, that's a question. Did you introduce to your son? And if you haven't, are you going to? Because you were talking about some educational video games. Is this something you think he'd even want to play?
I don't know if he'd want to or not. I mean, honestly, I think we played it because there was not a whole lot of options. Honestly, this would probably just bore him to tears.
You kids nowadays with your fork knives.
You know, and the sad thing is, I didn't even think about showing this to him. Like, it didn't even pop through my head. But as far as this playthrough, a lot of fun replaying it. I would definitely recommend anybody who wants to revisit for nostalgia. But I don't think I'd recommend it for like any, hey kid, you want to learn about these obscure locations on the map, and and
I mean, they're not exactly obscure.
well, I mean, like, I don't know what river crossings and all this stuff is. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, that's because you didn't play the game properly.
fair. But I mean, I stopped and looked at them. I listened to all the music and enjoyed that. And
Hey, kids, the Columbia River, this obscure location that splits Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and it's massive.
yeah, and if you were to give me a map of the U.S. and be like, "Where's this river at?" I'd have no idea.
Well, then you weren't paying attention in class.
I was not.
Well, there's a good chance it's on the western portion of the United States.
I know it's
just
somewhere
saying.
past Illinois.
It's west of the Mississippi,
Yeah.
okay? It's all I need to know.
What about you, Corey? What are your thoughts on this game?
I like it a lot. I mean, it's a fun game. It certainly has its charms. As Chris said, I don't think the modern generation is going to care about this at all because it is wildly out of date in comparison to what we have now, which is kind of sad because as we were talking about, there's really not a lot of like good educational material out anymore.
So, did you replay the original Oregon Trail or did you play Oregon Trail 2?
I played the original and then I played through 2 again because that's what I grew up with. So I played both of them, but I'm more familiar with 2.
How would you compare those two games in your mind? Like, is it a good continuation of the series? And if you were to suggest one to someone that's roughly our age that wanted to kind of go back and experience the nostalgia or charm of this era,
I would play 2 every time. I mean, the only thing that 1 has going for it is if you remember playing it in like as a child. 2 has like actual, color pictures. It has more detailed descriptions. There's more variables in terms of the like actual events that are occurring. It's just a built upon version of the original and it's just them making a better version to keep up with the time. So the first one is, it's a very bare bone version of whatever has come after it. And I'm sure like Oregon Trail 3, 4, and 5 or whatever number they got to before they were discontinued. I'm sure those are all better than 2 are, but like 2 at least had, like you said, it had the shooting gallery and it had like more interaction and there's just more verbiage and everything else to it. So it was better
Yeah.
looking overall. Like,
do you think either of you will buy the newer versions of the game?
No.
will I buy it? No. I can play this for free on any. I can open up a web browser on my phone and play this. Like I don't
Sure,
need
but
to
like I was
purchase
saying
this.
earlier, it's available on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and all that, and
For
Steam.
what reason? I mean, like I said, you can play it for free.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
It,
That's fair.
Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
I mean, especially if I were to buy it on Steam, that's so weird to me. Like, here's this 30-year-old piece of software that someone has revitalized and it's got the exact same thing going for it. Like, no, I'm just gonna play the one that's free on the on Chrome.
Now, I did mention earlier, back when the Oregon Trail came out, the zombie survival game came out for Apple, my iPhone 3 or whatever. I bought that for like $4.
I think I have that through Steam, but I'm not 100% sure. I have so many games on Steam that I've never touched or even looked at that it could just be lost in the backlog there. But
The version I had of it was like a straight up port of the original. It was black and green. It made your iPhone emulate the old game, and like it was not flashy at all. It was literally just a nostalgia trip, except with comedy.
The whole purpose of the purchase.
Yes.
I might actually go out and buy the revision of these games because
To see.
I do. Yeah, I just kind of want to see it because I watched some video of it and it looks good for a remake of these games, and it's not overly expensive or anything like that. And I wouldn't mind just putting it up on my shelf as well. Just a little
Mhm.
collector piece to just kind of remind me of things back then.
Where you came from, your roots.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many copies of this do you think are floating around in like little uh secondhand shops and like half price books in place like that?
Are you talking like the 5/8 floppies out there? Like
Yeah,
the
like the
the
original
5-inch ones?
games.
Yeah. Who knows? I would love to get my hands on an actual like disc of it from back in the day.
Now, hey, Sean, one thing I was going to ask you, when you were playing this had so much nostalgia just packed into it for me that like as I was playing it, I was remembering like field trips and stuff that we were that we had planned as kids. Like for some reason, like hearing the music and seeing the play, like seeing the screens and stuff, like reminded me of like trips to Springfield and stuff like that. Like, did you get any of that?
Not in the slightest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I just
Oh, no,
not
no,
at
no, that's
all.
fine. That's fine. I like this game. I don't know, had more nostalgia packed into it for me than like almost anything I can think of.
You ever find any of those old games like floating around at places like half price books and stuff, Sean?
I have, and I scoop them up whenever I see them. And in fact, I just checked on eBay. A copy of Oregon Trail, the Mech Apple IIe disc version 1.4 is $12, but
Can't get it.
almost $10 in shipping because it's pretty fragile. So they're gonna
Yeah,
have
you
to,
gotta pack it and
yeah,
something.
pack it pretty well. Quantity more than 170 units sold. So
It's just, I
yeah,
just
it's out there.
he bought a storage unit and found this pallet of them. Yeah, I remember I found a copy of like the old Pools of Darkness, like D&D game, in a half price books once.
I found a ton of the large spine PlayStation 1 games in our local half price books.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I scooped as many of them as I could into my like little bag, and then I tried to go back, and another dude was there, and he grabbed a bunch, and I was like, oh well, whatever. But I grabbed a
Yeah.
ton. But I think that's gonna kind of wrap it up. Do you guys have anything else before we close this out?
No, it was just a fun little detour while we were trying to knock out Vice City. It was just a kind of a throwback in time. I enjoyed it.
Playing a game that we played when I was 9, and now we're going to be playing a game that I played when I was 20.
You had 19 just sitting there, and you just
Oh my
went right
gosh, 9 to 19. Yeah, that would have been. See, that would have been a good little clip for like our commercials or something.
What commercial?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
With all that said, thank you everyone out there for listening to our wild ramblings because this episode has been Nothing short of absolutely insane.
If you guys at home are listening to this, we've been recording for approximately an hour and 12 minutes at this point, and this episode's runtime is like 19 minutes long. So please enjoy that, viewers at home.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut this thing into 1,000 pieces. So, for everyone out there, our next game will be, hopefully, this time, Grand Theft Auto Vice City for the PlayStation 2. And we're gonna have a special guest on, one of my buddies. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Chris, Cory, thank you so much for playing this game with me. For everyone out there, we've been Superannuated Starman.